Very good evening. Glad as ever that you could join us. Some real nostalgia on the show tonight. Some 1960s and 1980s nostalgia. That might rule some of us out, but not those in the studio this evening. We'll also be coming very much up to date with our views on the football scene, among other things. And it is, I've got to confess, to Blade straight away, but I know that a lot of you watch from behind the sofa anyway, despite who's on. It is something of an Owls night this evening. We have two long-standing Sheffield Wednesday supporters, and one of whom you'll know from the Human League, possibly, or more commonly, Heaven 17. He's a pop pioneer. If I can use the word pop, that's become a little bit dated. As we all have, Martyn. Martyn Ware on the show this evening.
Yeah, speak for yourself, Alan.
Thank you. I am. Who needs very, very little introduction. And Glyn McGuire. Now, Glyn is a filmmaker, and he's produced in the last couple of years.
Yeah, last 2 years.
A film called 1966, Sheffield Wednesday, Keep the Ball in the Bag, which is what one of the players, Vic Mobley, kept referring to when he was talking to his teammates throughout the FA Cup run of 1966, leading all the way to Wembley. And you've produced a film in association with something called Reporters Academy, where young people produced films and videos. Right. And collectively, you've produced what I've seen to be it's out on DVD. It's an absolutely fantastic nostalgia film, bringing together the players of 1966, though the surviving players are all there, interviewed contemporaneously, and film of matches right the way through the 1966 FA Cup run. So I can't speak highly enough of that if you haven't got that DVD, but we will have a taste. It's not on YouTube yet, so we will have a taste of Glyn.
Absolutely.
A couple of tasters in the show, a couple of minutes in the first half and a couple of minutes in the second half, and I do promise that this is going to be well worth a watch, however the conversation goes between me and Martyn.
So you've got Tourette's.
That's a good start, isn't it? Musician, composer, record producer, founding member of the Human League and Heaven 17. And you're still on the road to this day.
We are. We just announced a tour which is going to be on in November and December this year. And the pre-sales went up on Monday, and that's sold out already, the pre-sales. So the official ticket sales start tomorrow. Yes. So get in there quick, because I think it's going to sell out pretty quick, this tour. And it's going to be with the two girls that used to be in Propaganda, the band Propaganda, as well, and their new band. So it's a pretty good lineup, yeah. Yeah,
you're talking to somebody here of the, remembers the 1980s very well, as you do as well. So,
I do, yeah.
Yeah, we might have to sort of explain one or two things as we go along. But one thing you don't have to explain, you're an owl and have been, I think, virtually lifelong.
All my life, my father was. And actually his father, my grandfather, was alive when the club was founded.
Really?
So yeah, it's a lot of longevity. Touch wood in our family, and yeah. So we are really right from the inception of Sheffield Wednesday. All our family, the whole of Heaven 17, are all Wednesdayites as well.
Well, your father was a tool maker, I think.
That's right.
50 years.
50 years, yeah.
And I think that's as close to the Blades as we'll get tonight.
He didn't make cutlery, no, he made tools.
So. Oh, did he? Did he have an objection to making cutlery?
He did, yeah, and he wouldn't eat bacon either.
Right. James Gregg, by the way, will be our token blade on the show this evening. We will reverse this, by the way.
That wasn't meant to be an insult, by the way. He really wouldn't eat bacon because it had red and white stripes.
You are kidding.
I'm not kidding. It's absolutely true. On my children's life.
What about you?
I'll eat bacon, yeah.
Yeah, you've relaxed it, haven't you?
I don't mind, yeah.
Okay, well, mentioning your father's background, tool making industry and everything, we are going to talk later in the show about an exhibition that you've got coming up, which starts next Thursday here in Sheffield.
Well, the launch is next Thursday, but open to the public on Friday. Good Friday, yeah.
And that celebrates the steel industry?
It's about the history of the steel industry, the majesty of heavy industry, both in Sheffield and Port Talbot, actually. It's a joint effort with two other artists that come from South Wales. Right. It's going to be amazing. It's got three-dimensional sound, giant projections. It's a true experience for people who can't get close to the actual real thing. Yeah. This is going to be awe-inspiring, and it's free. What more could you possibly want?
What could be more awe-inspiring than that? That's going to be at Trafalgar House on Trafalgar Street in the city. It begins next Thursday, or opens next Thursday, so we'll talk more to Martyn about that as we go on. What do you make of this? Come right up to date with the pair of you now, because I'm going to say you're long-suffering. You probably are. You've had some good times as well. What do you make of it at the moment? I mean, Wednesday have had a couple of good years.
I don't get down to Hillsborough as much as I used to because I'm out filming and putting programmes together and different things and I suppose in some respects currently that's probably a good thing. You know, and you look at it recently, we've had 2 good years, and then this year it's been pretty awful. You know, and pretty awful on and off the pitch. If I'm being honest, you know, from a distance it looks that way. I would, you know. You've got to be careful for what you wish for as well, I think, these days. You know, coming back to the film and looking back throughout the years, we've had some, like all football teams, we've had some pretty dire times and some pretty exciting times. We're going through that wheel again on the dip. Of going through that suffering part again, really.
You've got to put it into perspective, haven't you? It doesn't register at all with the darkest days that in our lifetime that we've seen at Hillsborough. This does not register on that
scale. Save our owls and so on. Yeah, that's right.
I was there when we played. Was it Southend?
Yes, so was I. Yeah. And
we could have easily gone down to the 4th tier. Easily.
But for Mick Prendergast and Eric Potts with goals in the first half.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody stormed the pitch. Like we'd won the FA Cup.
We did.
It's unbelievable.
And this was only 9 years on from being at Wembley in the final against Everton,
That's
which
right.
we're going to come to in the film
Well,
later.
look at what's happened to Coventry, for instance. A similar kind of tale for them. I mean, my view on the whole Wednesday thing is I wasn't as surprised as everybody else seemed to be on social media that we were not doing as well. So it was quite clear to me we had an ageing squad. We hadn't been refreshed. I have to say, not particularly wasn't convinced about Jordan Rhodes even when we signed him. I think for whatever reason, he seems to be past his best. And I wasn't going, oh, that's it. That's the missing piece of the jigsaw. I just thought, in fact, you can kind of date back that whole thing to Jordan Rhodes joining. We had a good run towards the end to get into the playoffs. But it kind of the whole shape of the team and everything seemed to change a little bit when that happened, and I just thought this season, obviously, ridiculous injury list. And what can you say about it? I mean, that's never happened. I can't remember it.
No, I think that's got to be taken into account, but it's a huge squad as well, so you ought to be able to cope a little bit better.
The second string are about where they deserve to be, which is in the lower half of the Championship.
I think we both agree that it needed refreshing last summer, and I got tired of banging on that particular drum in my column. It needed, but you know, lessons can be learned. That can happen, hopefully, this close season, because there's a lot of good players there. You know, we talk about those injuries. When those players are back, have you been pleased to see younger players filtering in as well?
Yeah, I have. I think it's really good, you know, and unfortunately, like, you know, they've got their opportunity in a difficult situation as well, which I think is sometimes a big challenge. It's good to see young players. I think one thing that the team's like for the last 3 seasons is pace in the side for me.
Massively.
Yeah.
You know, I think it really like pace and, you know, for a quick break.
Pace. If you have players like Hooper, who I think is the big key player for us, more than Forrest Ayre actually. When Hooper's not there, we struggle, I think, because he's not the fastest player on earth, but he can. He's the link between midfield and the attack. So when he's not playing, we struggle massively. There's nobody else with a kind of vision who can slot a pass through, apart from maybe Adam Reach occasionally. And he's a bit patchy, although he's done quite well this season, I think. We've got no pace on the wings. We've got no pace up front. No. And you know, and the defence has been a bit kind of iffy as well. So add all those things together. I've always said to people that in the Championship, you only need to be 5% different to teams above you, or worse, or better, you're in the playoffs. Worse, you're in the bottom half.
It's not small margin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a small margin in the Championship.
Are you a season ticket holder to this day? Yeah.
2 of them. Yeah. Me and my son. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I live in London, so it costs me a fortune to come.
You're up and down on a regular.
With the London Owls. Yeah.
On a regular basis. The London Owls established a long, long time ago, and there is a connection with the capital city here from one club more than the other. Is there a reason for that, do you think?
I didn't know that, to be honest.
The London Owls go way back to the 60s, 70s, I think, when they were formed.
I think,
Yeah.
Well, it's still
going. Is there a
going.
reason for that?
It's still going, and some of my best friends are, you know, we always commiserate with us each other on the train on the way back and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see, before we just see the first excerpt from the film that you've produced on the '66 FA Cup run, not just the final, it's the whole story. How did this project come about?
Yeah, essentially, I'm co-founding director of an organisation called the Reporters Academy, and we work with young people between 15 and say 23, 24. And what we do is we train them in media skills to produce film, written pieces, podcasts, radio and so on. But essentially we're giving the young people a leg up in life. So it's all those transferable skills that are in there, you know, such as the employability skills that we look at within there. And the exciting tool is producing the films and making sure there's a platform for those films or those radio pieces and so on. So we do, same as any other media production company, produce pieces for the BBC, ABC in Australia. We go off and cover the Olympics and things like that. So it's just the same, but the unique twist is a young person producing the material.
And you find that big broadcasters will take on some of your projects and actually use them.
That's right. So we commission, when we're going out to the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast in 3 or 4 weeks' time.
Yep.
You can't be my bag carrier, Martyn. But yeah, so we're going out there, and the BBC, we're covering the Pacific Islands out there, the tiny islands of Fiji, Vanuatu, some of the islands that, you know, some people have never heard of before. And the BBC have asked us to, you know, produce 1 or 2 little colour pieces around that. And so we'll work with the young people, make sure it's up to industry standard, and it's great for their CVs.
Indeed. And so they're not getting paid directly for it, they're getting work experience.
That's right.
That they can be proud of, and a DVD that they can take to an employer and say...
Yeah, so essentially the volunteers, they come from all backgrounds and they've got all sorts of talents, you know, gifted and talented. We work with a lot of young people in care and so on. Some do get paid. It depends, like everyone else, on the commission and the grant funding.
You do
so I make sure, sorry?
You do.
I make sure I get paid.
Yeah.
So we get paid as facilitators and looking after the young people, and we try and pay the young people when they've got a little bit more experience, but it's key for them that we introduce them to networks and experiences and things like that. So it's real life experience for them, really. Absolutely. And it's an opportunity where they can not only get things right, get things on a platform, but they can make the mistakes in a safe environment as well.
Yeah. Sounds great. I want that for my daughter. She's looking for a job.
It really does sound good, doesn't it? Honestly, it's and kids, number of kids that I meet who say, how can I become a journalist? How can I be a football reporter? Because things have changed so much in the 40-odd years since I started, it's very difficult to advise them how to get started. So that, to me, I will say, well, enthusiasm's the biggest thing of the lot, and effort.
And resourcefulness.
That's it. Resilience.
Resilience, not getting discouraged.
Yeah.
Well, you must have had knockbacks in your music career.
Every week. Do you want to look at my sales figures? No, I've done all right over the years. I've been very fortunate, but you know, as the cliche goes, you know, opportunity has to find you prepared. Yeah. So that's the key thing. You know, I do a lot of teaching. I teach. I'm a principal of a master's course in London which teaches commercial music production, and I'm always telling my students that, you know, talent is like 7th or 8th down the list. Yeah. It's no good just being talented. A lot of things have to come into alignment. And top of them is resilience and resourcefulness. Yeah,
because for every performer who's out there, there's so many others who are capable of doing that.
Yes,
that's right.
As all the talent shows on TV show, don't they?
Yeah. But so I'm constantly trying to encourage them to go the extra 10% to do something that's truly excellent. Because it's so, to be honest with you, brutally honest, it's very easy to do average stuff now. I could probably knock up a track in an hour that would sound to the average ear kind of acceptable, whereas it would have taken 2 days and 3 days in a studio before.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we're going to go back to that film, which I think, honestly, thought, having watched the whole thing, I think it's absolutely excellent.
Yeah,
now, this is a couple of minutes from the start of the '66 adventure.
Hot town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down.
This is Beckton, proud-hearted skipper of Sheffield Wednesday, winning a corner.
High time, long time, daytime.
As bit of full-back play by Smith. That's why Spriggett is one of England's top goalkeepers.
Let's hang on to what we've got.
Oh, magnificent football by Eustace. Then here come the two teams.
"1966 will always be remembered at Hillsborough as the year England won the World Cup. But Wembley hosted another final that year. 100,000 watched Sheffield Wednesday play Everton in the FA Cup final. This is the story of Wednesday's remarkable cup run.
You play one game and you win it, you play the next game and you win it, you go, hang on a second, we've got a bit of a chance here, you know?
It never genuinely crossed my mind that you could be lucky enough to play in a final.
Great music. Sheffield was coming to life. It was like, you know, getting bigger, buzzing.
And of course, when we went 2-0 up, we thought, well, that's it. What's happening? We've won the cup.
In a way, we were like Busby babes. They're only the same ages as Matt Busby's babes.
We really got excited about playing cup matches.
But everywhere you went, people just spoke to you and happy, and yeah, it was marvellous.
Well, there we are. That is just a small flavour, and I'm sure that is as good an appetiser as any. You can't watch that and not want to see the entire, honestly, the entire DVD. I mean, who did we have there? Peter Eustace, Will Smith, Jerry Young, Don Megson. You know, you name it. You interviewed them, didn't you?
We did. The young people. We took the young people out, and we met up everywhere from locally in Sheffield to New Zealand. Vic's out there in New Zealand now, living life to the full. Yeah, he was a brewery rep, and he's out there, and his memory of that year was as razor sharp. It was fantastic. Wow. So, but it was great to meet all these players from '66. I mean, the inspiration came initially from myself. I thought it might be a good idea to get a few interviews with the players. There was a lot of hype, and quite rightly, around 25 years after Wednesday won the League Cup. But didn't seem to be much around '66 and getting to the cup final then. So we thought, get a couple of interviews, and literally, once Peter Eustace and Davy Ford heard about it, it started to snowball, and they were ringing everyone up, and we got Tony Hardesty and Paul Carrick, as you've seen.
Yes, Tony Hardesty, a colleague of mine, worked subsequently for the Sunday Express.
That's right.
And he was the Wednesday man for the Star, Sheffield Star and Green. Do you remember Tony Hardesty?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah, and then Tony Pritchett took on that, and then he got transferred over to Sheffield United.
Tony Hardesty.
Yeah.
The Greenan. I miss it.
The Greenan. Oh, we all do. Yeah, we all do.
Miss it.
It's a digital thing now. It's not quite
it's
the
not
same,
the same,
is it? No, we're a bit old-fashioned. It's fantastic to see all those. How did the kids that you had working on this project, the teenagers you had working on the project, relate to these players?
It was great for them because intergenerational, first of all. So it worked two ways really. So there's a lot of research involved initially, and to just let some humorous things like, you know, we were looking at the final, and a record was produced, you know, a vinyl record, or as one of my young people said, a vinyl. What's this vinyl, Glyn? Yeah. So vinyl record. So things like that, pounds, shillings and pence, guineas, all the things that we grow with and things like that. Even, I won't mention the player, but even something, what's an eggnog? Apparently one of the players used to drink eggnogs, can you believe? So I won't mention that. No. That embarrassment for that person. But they found it great because it's part of research, it's part of our heritage, and they loved, you know, something, on one level, it's great to get on the road, go and do interviews, but to talk about that time, to do research we got in the libraries at Sheffield, they looked at the old Greenan and all the match reports and things around that, and just to see adverts for, you know, Vauxhall Vivas for 250 quid, things like that.
That was my first car, was a Vauxhall Viva.
So for
for
them,
100 quid, I bought it.
So the experience was great, and it's and the young people who worked on it weren't all football fans either. So you know, it was, and that's why what we tried to do is include the music and shots of Sheffield of that time. So there's a wider audience just than the Sheffield Wednesday fans.
As a cultural and social history.
Absolutely. It's very impressive. We'll see more. In fact, we'll see a couple of minutes of the final itself later in the show. All these old-fashioned I used to spin your vinyl on hot turntables at Radio Hallam at one time. I did indeed, yes. Wow. Heaven 17, bit of Human League or whatever. That's part one gone.
Is it?
Yeah, 5 minutes time we'll have part two, believe it or not. Do rejoin us for that.